The M16 was America's space-age rifle that nearly destroyed its own army. In 1965, the United States military went to war with a rifle designed to be perfect. It was a product of the aerospace industry, built from aluminum and plastic, and marketed as a self-cleaning weapon that represented a new age of warfare. For thousands of soldiers in Vietnam, that promise became a death sentence. The failure of this rifle was so catastrophic, it triggered a congressional investigation and forced the world's most powerful military to relearn the fundamentals of combat. So how did America's space-age rifle become the center of a military scandal, and eventually the foundation for nearly every modern rifle in the West? The M16 story begins not in a government arsenal, but in a small workshop in Hollywood, California. The engineer was Eugene Stoner, a man with a background in aircraft, not firearms. His company Armalite was focused on a radical new concept. Post-war analysis showed that the future of combat would be decided by high-volume, controllable fire, not long-range marksmanship. The infantryman needed a lighter weapon and more ammunition. Stoner's design, the AR-15, was a direct answer. It was built using aircraft-grade aluminum and synthetic polymers. His vision was a weapon that was ergonomic, accurate, and light enough for a soldier to carry hundreds of rounds. But the US Army Ordnance Corps, a conservative institution committed to heavy rifles firing powerful rounds, rejected it in favor of the M14. To them, the M14 was a true battle rifle, a direct evolution of the M1 Garand that fired the powerful 7.62mm NATO cartridge. Stoner's rifle was considered too small and too unconventional. It would take a direct order from the Secretary of Defense to force the military to adopt it. The political fight in Washington was won. Now, the rifle's advanced engineering would be put to the ultimate test. To understand the M16, you have to understand what it was fighting against. Not just the enemy, but decades of military orthodoxy. Where the M1 Garand and its successor, the M14, were forged from heavy steel and carved from wood, the M16 was a creature of the aerospace age. Its foundation was a forged 70-75 aluminum receiver and a composite stock. The result was a rifle weighing just 6.5 pounds, a featherweight next to the nearly 10-pound M14. But the real revolution was inside. Instead of the heavy, long-stroke piston found in the Garand or the AK-47, Stoner's direct impingement system was radically simple. Here's how it worked. A thin tube siphoned hot gas from the fired bullet and channeled it directly into the bolt carrier, using the pressure itself to cycle the action. No piston, no heavy connecting rod. It was an elegant design that shed weight and complexity. This efficiency extended to the cartridge. The 5.56 by 45mm round was small, but its velocity, over 3,200 feet per second, was engineered to cause the projectile to tumble on impact, creating devastating wounds. Combined with the straight-line stock that channeled recoil directly backward, the rifle had almost no muzzle climb. Where the M14 was a beast to control in automatic fire, the M16 stayed flat. It was a design that prioritized precision over brute force, a weapon built with the tight, unforgiving tolerances of a machine. And that was its fatal flaw, because in the mud of Vietnam, there was no room for perfection. The rifle's first real test came in the hands of the elite, US Army Special Forces and airborne troops operating in Vietnam in the early 1960s. For them, the lightweight AR-15 was a revelation. In the close quarters chaos of jungle warfare, its low recoil and high volume of fire were decisive advantages over the heavy, unwieldy M14. The glowing reports from these units sealed its fate. The Pentagon, seeing a solution to the M14's failures, fast-tracked the M16 into mass production, ordering hundreds of thousands of units to equip the rapidly growing American presence in Southeast Asia. But the rifle being shipped to the infantry was not the same weapon the Special Forces had tested. To meet demand, the Army made a series of unvetted changes. The ammunition was switched to a cheaper powder that caused heavy carbon fouling. The chamber was left unchromed, making it vulnerable to corrosion. And a myth was created that the M16 was a futuristic, self-cleaning weapon. By 1966, the M16 was in the hands of every American infantryman. It was no longer just a rifle. It was America's technological promise to win the war, forged in aluminum and plastic, a promise that was about to be broken. In Vietnam, the M16's design of aerospace precision was tested against its direct opposite, the AK-47. The M16 was a finely tuned machine of tight tolerances, a product of a culture that believed technology was the solution. The AK-47 was a loose, overgassed system built with one non-negotiable principle. It had to fire. In the suffocating humidity and mud of Southeast Asia, M16's precision became its critical flaw. The combination of heavy carbon fouling and corrosion caused the rifle's most infamous malfunction: a failure to extract.
What was causing the jamming of the M16s, do you know?
It seems that the excessive firing through the 16 will cause it to jam after a certain period of time.
A spent casing would jam in the chamber, and the only tool that could fix it was a cleaning rod. A death sentence in a firefight. It was the scalpel versus the hammer. One side brought a weapon built for perfection. The other, a weapon built for survival. I'm sure you know which one came out on top. The M16's image transcended the battlefield to become a fixture in global pop culture. In blockbuster films and first-person video games, it became the default weapon of the modern soldier, the clean, technological symbol of the American military. But for the men who carried it through the jungles of Vietnam, this heroic image was a bitter irony. In Leonard's home, they described a different reality: a rifle that jammed in combat, a tool that betrayed its user when it mattered most. As one military historian later summarized, the M16 was propaganda in aluminum and plastic, a perfectly marketed rifle for a war that didn't exist. It came to symbolize the deep and widening gap between the war America projected to the world and the one its soldiers were actually fighting. The controversy, fueled by soldiers' letters, became a national scandal. In 1967, a congressional subcommittee launched a formal investigation, and the M16's dark side was laid bare. Not one of misuse, but of institutional negligence. The findings were incriminating. The official report confirmed that the Army had changed the ammunition propellant against the rifle's original specification. It confirmed the chamber was left unchromed to save an estimated $2.50 per rifle. And it confirmed that troops were never issued cleaning kits because of the false self-cleaning marketing. The consequences were immediate. The military rushed the M16A1 into production, a rifle that corrected the flaws with a chrome-lined chamber and a forward assist. A massive training program was launched, and millions of cleaning kits were shipped to Vietnam. The rifle that was promised to be maintenance-free now required relentless discipline. It had become a paradox: a weapon that was as dangerous to the man holding it as it was to the enemy. With its flaws corrected, the M16A1 finally validated Eugene Stoner's original design on the battlefield. The platform was not just salvage, it became the foundation for the next 60 years of Western small arms development. The rifle evolved continuously. In the 1980s, the M16A2 introduced a heavier barrel and a 3-round burst mechanism for improved fire discipline. Later, the M16A4 added a modular rail system for optics, but its most important evolution was a reduction in size, resulting in the M4 carbine. Today, that compact design is the standard issue weapon for the entire US military and is used by over 80 countries. Its 5.56mm cartridge is a NATO standard. Nearly 60 years after its near failure in Vietnam, the M16 platform is no longer a controversial experiment. It is the standard by which all modern military rifles are measured. Born from innovation, defined by failure. Immortalized as the standard. The M16 didn't just change the weapons of war, it changed the institution that wields them. It was a lesson, paid for in blood, about the brutal cost of facing politics over performance. It is, in every sense, the rifle that forced the modern military to look itself in the mirror.